Please welcome to the stage Dr. Michele Koons.
Wow, thank you everybody for coming. I speak in this room often, but never for this many people. So this is really exciting. Okay, so our topic today is roots. And I know on the name tag it was sort of a slightly different take on this, but I want to ask and start off and say, what do you think of when you think of roots? Tree. Family. Plants, foundation. Nurture. Underground. All of these things. For me, and where I'm sort of taking this talk, I think of, yes, family, religion, the country you would go to war for, the traditions that you celebrate with your family, the holidays that you celebrate. And in many ways, roots has to do with our identity and identity politics. So my story begins here in Philadelphia, the birthplace of our nation, the roots of American culture, a nation built on the ashes of Native American settlements that normalized slavery, and a city that is one of the most diverse today in the nation, but also one of the most segregated. This is also where my story begins. And my struggle to uncover my roots is woven into the fabric of this city full of tension and contradiction, and a place where I've honestly always felt a little uneasy. So who am I? I come from a very large, very proud Irish Catholic family. We are so proud of our Irishness. This is my brother, and my nephew is in the foreground, and my brother is holding my son, who I convinced my husband that we had to name Sullivan so that we could keep with our Irish roots. This is my Nana. Her name is Betty McHugh. She's 100% Irish, second generation Philadelphian. She married Ken Koons, obviously not Irish, where I get my beautiful last name. And it's okay though, because I still went to 23andMe and they tell me I'm 75% Irish, so it's okay. I'm okay with it. And this is my grandma, my mom's mom, Alice McGinnis Gaffney. Yeah, wow, yeah, that's an Irish name for you. Alice, who was just amazing, she was the daughter of Irish immigrants. But both of my great-grandparents, they came over from Ireland separately and met in Philadelphia. My great-grandmother came over when she was just 12 years old, all alone on the boat. They eventually settled in an Irish-Italian immigrant neighborhood in South Philadelphia on a street called Taney Street. My grandmom eventually married Tom Gaffney and moved out to the suburbs of Philadelphia, where they raised 6 kids. And I was very, very close with my grandmom, and I would always go and talk to her, and she would tell me stories about her childhood on Taney Street, and just all the amazing things that all the kids would do, and how she learned to cook really amazing Italian food from Mrs. Gibalani, and it was just like this magical place in my mind. And I would always go to grandmom and say, can we drive down Taney Street? I want to see where you grew up. I want to see it. And she would get this quiet in her voice and say, no, we can't. We can't drive down Taney Street. It's different. It's dangerous. We're not welcome there anymore. And I would always get very sad because I felt sad for her. I wasn't sure if she was actually sad, but I felt sad for her. But I was also sad for me because it was a part of my roots that I really wanted to experience and I was not allowed to. Now, I'm very, very proud of my Irish heritage, and I love my family so much, but I see great privilege in being able to wear that pride. And I see the injustice that people of in privileged positions have inflicted on those who are less fortunate. And I know exactly why I wasn't allowed to go down Taney Street. But I didn't have a vocabulary or a framework to know how to talk about it. I didn't know what that really meant. And when you don't try and understand the roots of other people, this manifests fear. So I went to a very diverse high school, people with origins and backgrounds from all over the world, but there was really no effort to talk about other people's roots in the curriculum or in any kind of classroom setting. There's nothing in terms of social science or anthropology, a word that I didn't know at the time. So I went off to college, and I ended up taking a much greater leap. This is my metaphorical leap, and a ridiculous picture on its own, and doing something much different. But I didn't realize I was going to get there. I thought I was going to originally study sports medicine. So I show up my freshman year of college, and I sign up for a class, an alternative spring break, to go to Mexico to build a school. But the first day of class, I show up, and they're like, we're not going to Mexico, that fell through. We're going to Bolivia. And I, being from Philadelphia, where our history classes were just about the revolution or Europe, I didn't even know where Bolivia was, honestly. And I'm embarrassed to admit that today. But I showed up wide-eyed and terrified, and I was like, all right, let's do it. And when I got there, I encountered this culture and these people that were just, it was an indigenous culture that was so authentic and so real to me, so different from this kind of kiss me, I'm Irish identity that I had for my own. And I was very just taken by the whole thing. And these were indigenous people who were ravaged by Spanish oppression and colonialism, a theme that was actually celebrated in the city of brotherly love. So I came home from that experience and immediately changed my major to anthropology and Latin American studies. And so I went on to study anthropology, which is the study of people, and more specifically, archaeology, which is the study of ancient people, but it's in the same discipline. I got my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, and you already heard the laundry list, and my PhD in this subject. And so I thought, I studied human conditions, cultures all over the world, and this is the moment I'm leaving the Peabody Museum at Harvard, like the minute after I defended my dissertation. I was so excited. I was like, yes, I am free and I am woke. Yeah. So woke. No, not so much. It was only about a week later or so, I went on this environmental leadership program in Germany, and there were 19 students from all over the world. There was only one other North American student on this program, and she was a Native American woman. And one of the big things that we were charged to do was to have these culture days where we would explain our culture, we would make traditional foods and talk about the dance and talk about all of the beauty of our cultures. And this is Marie. She's from Germany, and she made these amazing cakes and breads of recipes that her grandmother taught her in the Black Forest region, and how to cut the bread properly, and all these beautiful things. And you can see me in the background. I got this face like, oh, shit. I had, in these moments, realized I'd spent all this time studying the cultures and traditions of other people, but I still felt empty and cultureless. And a lot of these tensions of my childhood started to come back. And to add to that, people in this program, they all knew about American culture. They're going to make some hot dogs and talk about, football. And I'm just like, yeah. And so I was like, I know. And then I was like, well, my shallow connections to my Irishness were also really staring me in the face. Because it's like, what am I going to make? Irish potatoes? I mean, for those of you who don't know, it's like confectioner sugar and sweetened condensed milk and coconut rolled in cinnamon. It's disgusting, first of all. And the person from Ireland was actually going to be able to represent Irish culture. So I really did not handle the situation very well. And I think I just made a hoagie and was like, all right, we're good. But I've had a lot of time to reflect on this experience since then. And I realized that it's okay that I feel conflicted about my roots. I don't have to identify with everything about the roots of who I am. And the struggle for me with identifying and coming to terms with the colonial roots of the city where I was raised has really afforded me to be able to understand the struggles of others who have had their roots taken away from them through all kinds of ways of injustice or violence or any kinds of oppressions. And it's really been this great privilege that I've had as an archaeologist to help contribute to people being able to reclaim some of these parts of their identity through the archaeological process. And in some way, This helps alleviate, I know it's a very selfish thing, but it alleviates some of that tension that pulls at me from the colonial past. So I'm going to shift gears now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the Moche culture. This is undoubtedly one of the greatest civilizations who have ever lived. You may have not heard of them, but I'm going to tell you about them. They are a pre-Inca society from the north coast of Peru. They inhabited about 12 contiguous fertile valleys that cross-cut this desert environment. They're known for their really large temple complexes that we locally call huacas, made out of these adobe bricks. Many of these have just fantastic polychrome murals painted on the facades. They were incredible craftsmen. Metallurgy, woodworking was just some of the most amazing you've ever seen. And they're very well known for their ceramics in both these figurative type forms as well as these what we call fine line forms. And we had some of those outside, and we're going to bring out some more collections too afterwards. So if you didn't get a chance, go check them out. This particular vessel has a scene that is painted on it. And we know this scene exists on at least 12 other vessels. And what I'm going to do right now is roll it out. So this is a two-dimensional version of that scene, so we can talk about it. What we're seeing is on the bottom register, there are warriors, and they're slitting the throats of prisoners. They're filling up goblets of the blood of the prisoners, and then that blood is being presented to these more elite figures on the upper register. Yes, it's pretty intense, right? So we didn't know if these scenes, so these vessels that have this scene have been known about for a long time, but we didn't know if these were things that actually happened in Moche world or if they were referring to myths. This part of the world, there's no writing system. So what we learn is really from the archaeological record. So we didn't know. But in 1987, there was kind of this watershed moment for Moche studies. And in a town of Sipan, which is up here on the north coast of Peru, authorities realized that all sorts of gold and these museum-quality ceramics were starting to enter the black market. And so they called in an archaeologist to do a salvage excavation. And it turns out what they discovered was what is still considered the richest burial ever to be found in the New World, the Lord of Sipan. All kinds of gold and fancy, fancy stuff. But what was really exciting for archaeologists was that this individual was buried with all of the regalia that we see with figure A from the sacrifice ceremony. So we were like, wow, okay, so these are actual people. And so this moment, but we still didn't really know that much. This was just an N of one. But this was also this real watershed moment for Moche studies in a greater way as well, because prior to 87, there were very few excavations allowed at these huaca centers. And that's partially because people thought that everything was already looted or that by excavating, it would promote more looting. This area of the world looks like the surface of the moon. It's just been ravaged by looting. So they decided to allow more projects, and a whole host of projects started after this, including one at a site called San Jose de Moro, which is located roughly here, where since the 90s, they've discovered, I think they're up to 14 priestesses like this from the sacrifice ceremony. So we began to realize that these are actually roles that people take on during their lifetime, much like the bishops or cardinals in the Catholic Church. So kind of really changed the way that we understand and are able to, quote unquote, read some of this artwork. And I've been fortunate enough to have worked on a couple of these burials of these priestesses. And they're in these chamber-style tombs that are filled with ceramics and metal work. A lot of them have sacrificial victims with them. You can see here, this is the one that I got to work on, where we found these really cool ceramics. These little ceramics that you see everywhere, we think of them as like shot glasses, that they were having these really big parties at the funeral, and everybody would take a shot of beer, because corn beer was very, very popular there, and then throw it in before they capped the burial. So pretty cool stuff. And here, this is a mask that was on the top of the coffin that was made out of wood and had these filigree metal inserts of like priestesses and boats on them. And this is the mask on the top. But what's been really incredible as an archaeologist, it's something I never really expected to experienced when I got into this was that the people of this area started to really identify with what we were finding in the archaeological record, and they started to incorporate it and reclaim it and make it a part of their roots today. So you see, this part of Peru particularly was ravaged by the Spanish. 90% of the population was killed by disease, mostly smallpox. The people that were left were round up and forcibly resettled into reducciones or reductions. Oftentimes those settlements were built on the plazas of the prior huacas. Anything relating to former religion was burned. And the languages, which we know of 3 that were spoken in this region, Yungas, Moche, and Kingam, are all now completely extinct. It was decimation. But through the archaeology, people are starting to be able to reclaim some of these indigenous roots. And so much so that in the town of Chepén, which is right next to San Jose de Moro, they have recently erected a statue of a priestess at the entrance of the town. And on the feast of San Sebastian, the patron saint of Chepén, they not only now bring out the image of the saint to parade around, they now have reenactments and people dressed up as priestesses and warriors. So they're combining those roots of the ancient world with the somewhat more modern, even though it's not totally modern, underpinnings. And there's been a real revitalization of arts as well. So this is Julio, and he lives in San Jose de Moro, and he makes ceramics using all of the same techniques that the Moche did. He procures the clay, finds the paints, makes the same type of tools and firing, and these are things that we've all learned from the archaeology. And his pieces are just incredible. They sell them in boutiques, and it's just pretty great. And this isn't just happening at San Jose de Moro. The next valley to the south, there's a site called El Brujo, and in 2005, I don't think I can find the laser on this, just about there somewhere, the Senora de Cal was discovered in this huaca with these beautiful murals on it. And so the Senora was found in a mummy bundle and many, many layers of wrappings. And inside these wrappings, this is the same mummy bundle that's just being in the process of being unwrapped. They found all kinds of these incredible artifacts, and they built a museum. These are some headdresses, jewelry. These are gold atlatls, which are like spear throwers, and I think of them like the dog chucker, ball chucker things. But a gold one you couldn't really use, so we know that they were ceremonial. And these are nose rings, and I think some creative person should make these and sell them on Colfax, because they like clip onto your nose, and they're just beautiful. And the people of this town the town of Magdalena de Cal, which is right next to the site, have also really incorporated this into their new roots that they are reclaiming. They have these reenactments with the person dressed up as the priestess. These people in the back are dressed up as the same as these people these images that we see on the murals that are on the side of the huaca. And they've even erected a statue in the center of the plaza in the town of Magdalena de Cal. So although these are not my roots, the roots of this particular culture, I feel a great appreciation that I've had this opportunity to work in this area to be able to help reclaim some of these roots. This is my current project. I'm working in the southern Moche realm of this part of Peru. And in 2010, a colleague of mine, Lisa Trevor, discovered these murals there. And so this summer we're going back and we're going to be uncovering more of these murals to give back some more information of this ancient past. So I'm going to shift gears again and talk about putting down roots. And in our globalized world, people are much more mobile than they've been ever. We have the opportunity to move. We can get up, we can move, we can put down roots in new places, but there's still a lot of forced resettlement and people who have to leave homelands for reasons that they don't really want to. And for me as an archaeologist, it's really important to me to be able to discover, uncover, and to connect with the roots of the people who lived in places that I now call home. So this brings me to Colorado, place I've called home now for 12 years of my life. And I do feel like I have some roots here. I came here as a kid going skiing with my family. I'm now teaching my son to ski. It's not going so well. He's little, but we'll get there. I have a family. I bought a house. I have roots here, my new roots, the new roots I've created. But it's still important to me to connect to those roots of the ancient people. So in 2016, I started a project called the Magic Mountain Archaeological Project. The site of Magic Mountain, many of you may have heard of, maybe not, but you might be familiar with Apex Park. Apex Park is in Golden, just south of the proper city of Golden, and it's an incredibly popular place today. If you go on any weekend, the parking lot is just full of cars, of bikers and hikers, and people just enjoying and connecting with the landscape, connecting with nature in this particular place. Well, our research that we started has shown that people have been living in this same space going back 9,000 years. And they've been coming there over and over and over again. It was a very special place. It was a campground for these mobile hunter-gatherers that were passing through the region. And some of them may have stayed for even longer periods of time. There used to be a natural spring on the site, which is no longer there because modern construction, but it made it a place where people could live year-round. And we have found house rings and ovens and all kinds of artifacts at this site. But the project was started as a community project, as a way to connect us to that history that's in our backyard, those roots that are just below our feet, that so many people didn't even realize existed right here. A lot of people think, Mesa Verde. We had youth groups come, and we had volunteers. We communicated with all of the Native American communities that have some kind of historical connection to the state of Colorado to hear their stories and to get their appreciation of what this place may have been. Multi-generations of groups of people who were able to get out there and discover and uncover parts of this past of place that we all call home. Over the course of 2017, 2018, we were out there for a total of about 5 weeks and 20-some days of those having tours. We saw over 3,000 people on those tours, and people were just so excited for this opportunity to connect to this place in a way that was accessible and there. And fortunately, we've won a couple awards for this project, including National Award from the Society for American Archaeology for Excellence in Public Education. And right now, we're in the process of creating signage and a circuit so that people can continue to go out there and see the site and appreciate and learn from it, even though we're not digging there right now. So when that's finished, go out there. Take this tour. Make these roots that are embedded into Colorado a part of your roots and a part of your narrative as well. So roots today are changing in this globalized world. There's a lot more fluidity in our roots and how we define them and what we identify with. So here we are. This is Sully again, creating new roots at the stock show. But so in many ways, though, we can't escape our roots. They are embedded in us. This is Sully's grandfather from 1942. And you would have thought we took him to one of those old-timey photo booths. I mean, the striking resemblance. So our roots they're in us no matter what. No matter what they're part of us. The good and the bad. I mean, this is all good. But the roots, they don't define us as people. And we have the ability to create new roots through lived experiences. So this is my mom, and our love for yoga does not come from our Irish roots. But even though I've been somewhat critical about American culture, the American culture affords us this freedom to connect with things that are outside of what our heritage dictates to us in ways that people in other parts of the world can't. And so we are allowed to take these different things that inspire us, that make us tick, and incorporate them into our roots and make them a part of our roots. So my story of Taney Street is in many ways the story of America. When my grandmom was a kid growing up there, It was the Irish who were marginalized. When I was a kid, the people on Taney Street may have looked different, but they faced many of the same hardships that my immigrant ancestors did. But when we take the time to get to know the roots of one another, the differences are far less pronounced. And I also think we need to be a little bit more compassionate and forgive a little bit more. I think there are many people out there who would love to know the roots of other people, but they're afraid to ask. They're afraid to make a mistake. They're afraid they're going to say something wrong and offend and be criticized. I mean, look at the comment sections. It's just a scary world out there, and I think we just need to be compassionate to build more transparency, to build more trust and awareness. And we need to be able to go down Taney Street. And we need to take our kids and our families and our friends, and we need to go again and again and again. So I leave you with this quote from Ruth Benedict, an anthropologist. This is from the 1940s. And I go out there and I charge you all to be anthropologists. But I say, up here, although my journey as an anthropologist has allowed me to connect with other roots of other civilizations and other people, I am still very uncomfortable talking about my own roots, and I feel a sense of vulnerability. But this is where the rubber hits the road and where that magic needs to happen. We need to get out there. We need to talk about our roots with other people. We need to learn about their roots and all that uncomfortable tension. We need to take these stories and these narratives of humanity and weave them into our art that we produce, our creative outlets, whatever they might be, so that we can create a world with just a little less fear and a much deeper connection to our collective roots. Thank you.